Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Creating Hanley. My name is Kimberly. Can't even say my name. Your host here at Creating Hanley, and we are making these fabric boxes. It doesn't have to be Steelers or a sports team or anything, but we're just gonna make these boxes and see how they are boxed. They stand up on their own. It's a reversible box, and I put a little tab on it, and I also put my label on it. But if you put a pretty fabric on the outside, you can turn these around and it could be something totally different. So I just put black, and that could be fine too, because if you want to kind of like keep things incognito, you can do this, and then you can take a little clip and clip it closed, and there you go. So we are going to be making these boxes today. Now, the fabric that I chose is birthday fabric. So, where is it? Here it is. Birthday fabric. This is the fabric that we're going to work with today. And the lining that I chose is, I don't know if you can see it there. Oh, I'll back up. Maybe you can see it there. It's like whipped cream, maybe, or soft serve ice cream with sprinkles. Can you see that? So I thought that was pretty fun. So we're going to do that. Let's just dive right in. All right, now these are 12.5 inches. I just used this 12.5 inch rule, which I'm not sponsored by any company. And so I just cut fabric out from that 12.5 inch rule. Now this box was made from 10 inch. Yeah, 10 inch fabric or layer cake. So layer cake size. You need 4. So you use a 10, you can use a layer cake. You need 4, 2 for the outside and 2 for the inside. And you also need the same size for infusible fleece. Oh my, look who's here. Well, hello, Sabrina. Oh, my poor little girl. Do you want to hop into a fabric box? Cats love boxes. I bet she does. So anyway, let's just get right into this. So put your right sides together of the same fabric. So we're going to do outside fabric right now. Put same sides together. So pretty sides. Oh, sweet girl. Yeah, I was an extra in that movie a couple of years ago. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's look here. So make sure these are perfectly lined up and everything is square. You can put a couple of pins in. I like to put pins at the top. So we're going to cut out 2.5 inches on these corners. All right, now this isn't lining up exactly. Now, keep in mind if you have fabric that reads a certain way, directional, if you have directional fabric, make sure your directional fabric is going exactly the same way on both sides, or going in the way that you want them to go, and it should be, going up towards how you can read it. Okay, so I'm just putting in a couple of pins at the top here, just to note that that's the top, and I'm going to put one in the center. I'm also going to take my little 2.5 inch square, and I'm coming down at the bottom, and you can mark it. So right here, I'll turn this around so you can see a little bit better. So 2.5 inch square. You want to make sure that this is as square as possible. Mine's a little bit wonky. Okay, so whatever marking utensil you want to use. I don't know if this white is gonna work. Maybe, is that white gonna work? Yeah, maybe it'll work. Okay, so just take your 2.5 inch. Okay, on both sides. You don't have to have this thing, but you can use 2.5 inches, however way you want to measure that. And you don't have to cut this out now. You can, so we're going to sew these 3 sides. You can sew these 3 in together. You don't have to cut these out, but as long as they're marked, now you know these are going to box your corners. So these are super important. You want to keep those marked. And that is how we get these creases to make the bottom. We have to box the corners. So that's this whole process, okay? So you can cut these out now, or you can sew all the way around and cut these out later. I'm gonna cut these out now. I'm just using my scissors. Let's see, where is the line? I can't even see the line. Really, I cannot see the line with this black, so I'm gonna use a pencil and do this again with this pencil. There we go. That's better. Okay. Okay. All right, there. Now these we just set aside. However, I'm gonna do something fun with these corners, these cut out corners, so save them. Oops. And now also, these are 2.5 inch squares. So you can use these in scrap buster box quilt projects, or put these in your crumb box or something. Okay? So, oh, kitty, come on. All right. Now, let's sew down here, and I'm going to use black. Unfortunately, I have to change this out now. Oh, where did I put the black? So I had the white thread in because I quilted the lining. All right, kitty, come on. And the lining is white or cream color. You saw what the lining is, ice cream. So I used white to quilt the lining. So I have that prepared all ready to go. And I'll show you that step right after we finish this one. Alright, so now I have the 2 pins at the top. I know I'm not going to sew that. I'm just going to sew down both of these sides and this bottom. You can use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this started off a little bit weird, so I'm gonna rip these stitches out and redo the top. You know, Okay, that's better. Now I'll take this to this side and 1/4 inch seam allowance right down there as well. Right along the bottom. Okay, now you can take these pins out because your fabric is sewed together. So all 3 of these sides are sewed together. These 2 are now open, these 2. So one thing you can do to help keep everything in alignment later is to take this over to your ironing board and iron open these seams. You can just press them to one side if it's easier, and if you do that you can nest on the other side, but we're going to be adding batting, fleece, or whatever, so you probably want to open up the seams because it'll get pretty heavy. Okay. Now, my iron just turned off. Of course it did. And because my iron is broken, I have to go to the wall and unplug and replug the wire back in to the outlet. Okay. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. So do this along with me. And by the end of this video, we will both have a fabric box finished. Okay. Okay, so this is the outside now. This is the outside of my bag. So if I turn it inside out, or right sides out, this is now what it looks like. This is now what it looks like. All right, now we're going to do the exact same thing to the lining. But before we do that to just the lining, we want to get our fusible fleece, and we want to take the glue side of our fusible fleece and take the back of our lining and place that down. So we are going to stick our lining to the fusible fleece. So go do that. Cut out enough fusible fleece so that you can place your lining nice and smooth on there. Okay, now I have mine overhanging just a little bit so that when I iron it down, sometimes this can either get bigger or it can shrink, but I just want to make sure I have enough overhanging so that when I iron it down, all the fabric is covered with a fleece, and then I can trim up after I iron. And then once you do that twice to both of your linings. And then you want to do the same thing to the lining that you did to this. So take your lining pieces. Now they are both, now pretend this has the backing, so they are both like this. And then if you have directional lining fabric, make sure they're going in the correct direction. And place right sides together and repeat the exact same thing that we just did for this box, okay, or for this outside piece. So you want to pin it in place. Take your 2.5 inch ruler. I don't know where mine went. So you just take the 2.5 inch and then you mark. All right, where's 2? Here's 2.5 inch. 1, 2, 2.5 inch. Here, mark that, and then mark that in the other corner, and then cut those out, and then sew all 3 sides. And now you are at this place right here. Okay, so I quilted mine before I put these together. So if you want to do a little bit of quilting, do the quilting right after you iron, right after you attach the fusible fleece. So you attach the fusible fleece, let that cool, and then run it through your machine to do your quilting. I just did, you can see, I just did squiggly lines straight down. That's all. So I didn't do anything fancy. And then now they are attached. So let's turn it inside out so you can see. Okay, so this is what my lining looks like now. It looks exactly like my outside fabric. And now these corners are going to be boxed. We're going to box these right now. So now that you're at this stage with both of your lining and outer fabric, we are going to box the corners. So now that you have ironed these open, right? So these seams are now ironed open. You're going to pull these little corners apart, like pull them tight so that the fabric goes straight. Now I have extra threads sticking up, but that doesn't matter. So you can trim those off if you like, if they're bothering you. I guess I will, because they're kind of bothering me. Okay, so now the nice and flat, right? Nice and straight. Make sure that your seams are open. And you can pop a pin or use your Wonder Clips right here and hold that in place. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. But I'm going to hold off on that because I'm going to do this side first. It's a little bit thick and unwieldy, so I don't want to have any pins sticking in my hands or any clips that might get caught on something. So let's just do this. Make sure everything is out of the way. This is flat, okay, straight, and then a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to backstitch here because that's going to be right at the corner, that's going to be like a stress point. So I'm just backstitching that just to give it a little extra oomph. And then when I come up to the center, I'm going to go a little bit slower, and because that fabric is going to be thick, especially on the fleece over the what am I trying to say? Over this seam, it's going to be especially thick because now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of thick, not only fabric, but now you have the fleece. So there's a lot of layers there, so just go a little bit slow. And then I back stitch that to make sure that stress point doesn't get overworked. Okay, so now it should look like this, and I use black thread so you can see. Keep those open. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing to this side. So these seams stay open, these seams stay open, and just make it as flat as possible. And I'm not even gonna clip it, I'm just gonna try to hold it as best I can with my fingers. Keep that flat. Now if it tries to bow out, rein it back in, bring it back in. Well, I might have to clip that just to train it. Train the fabric. Okay, and then I can release that and then bring it as flat as possible down on your sewing surface. And then 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, I'm going to back stitch right at the edge there to keep any stress points that might stress it later on. Whoever uses it. Okay, here we go. All right, now we're good there. I'm going to speed that up a little bit. Back stitch. Okay, and cut. Great. Now, check it out. Now it's forming a box, isn't it? It has a bottom now. Nice, I like it. It has a bottom. So we're forming our box. So if you want to, you can, double check that all your fabric has been caught in the sewing. Okay? Because if it is not, this is the bottom, and you don't want the bottom to be unraveling. All right, there we go. And then if you wanted to, like, iron the bottom kind of crisp, you can go ahead. Now's a good time to do that. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to box the corners on this outer piece now. So I need to turn this inside out so that the seams are showing. Okay. All right. Now you take these corners and make them a little bit tight, not super tight, but tight enough so that it becomes flat. Open up your seams. And then we're going to sew these. So make sure these seams are open. So we're going to sew them in the exact same way we just sewed the lining. Okay. All right. Mine's looking like it's going to be a little bit wonky. I'm not happy with that. So, I don't know. And then again, I back stitch over that open seam. Okay. Like so. All right. Good. Now the same thing on this side. I hope you're doing this, following along with me right now, so we have a finished box by the end of this video. All right. And this one's coming together. This side's coming together a little bit quicker. Back stitch over the middle open seam. Okay, and there you go. So those are, all the fabric is caught in there. Fantastic. All right, now, again, you can see we've just boxed the bottom, we've boxed those corners, and now we're creating a box. So let's take this right sides out, and again, if you wanted to crisp up these, this seam, you can take it over to the iron those nice and flat, poke out your corners. So now you have, this is your outside and this is your inside. But what we're going to do is we're going to drop the inside into the outside. So this is turned this way. See how the lining is like this and the outside's like this. Okay, we're going to drop this in. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add, when do I want to add my tag? I think I'll add my tag at the end. Do I want to add my tag? No, I'm going to add my tag right now. So you probably don't have a tag. Where did mine go? My Creating Hanley tags. Okay, so I'm going to sew my tag in right here. So here's the two seam sides. I'm going to kind of put it right in the middle. Actually, on my Steelers one, I think I put it over the seam. So I put it right here over the seam. I kind of think I want to do that. instead of right here. No. What I'm gonna do is wait until the end. I'm gonna wait until the end to attach that. But I did want to add some extra tabs, which is an extra thing that you can do if you want to. So what I have done, so these little 2.5 inch squares that you cut out, fold them in half if you want to make these little loopy tabs. So if you want to make little loopy tabs where somebody can, like, you know, pick it up like this, or hang it on a nail on a wall or something, a hook, you can do that. Now I just took ribbon for this one, just ribbon. These are really small and it might be kind of useless, but I'm gonna add it anyway. And it's utilizing this fabric that we cut. So fold it in half. So now we have a crease down the middle. And then take the one side and fold that raw edge into that crease. I can't even see. And crease that. And then take the other raw edge, fold that in, and crease that. Now, these two should come together like this. Now you're folding it over, and now you have a little loop or a little like tab that you can sew closed. All right, like so. Now you have this little tab, okay? And you can fold it over like that from here, fold it over like this, and now this becomes a little loop. Now you're gonna lose maybe almost maybe a quarter of that in the seam allowance. Okay. All right, there you go. Great. So what I've done here is I put it on where the seam, but if you want to do two on both sides, you can do that as well. All right. But that's where this seam meets. Now, so okay. You want to have these ready to go so that when the time comes to sew those on, you're ready, okay? So if you want to add these little handles, you can do that now. Well, what I would say is if you want to add the handles, prepare them now. Okay. Now we're going to drop this inside here. So make sure the seams are going the exact same way, because you're going to line up your seams. Okay? So line up. Here's this seam here. This seam right here with this seam here. And pin it, clip it. You can even do like a little bit of glue, like tiny bit of a glue dot right there, but I would not rely on that completely because that could rip easily. And then so you're going to line up your seams right here. And this is why we ironed them open, because there's a lot of bulk coming under your needle right here. There's a lot of bulk right there. Okay, so you want to line those up. Clip. And then make sure the bottom settles in there really nice. It should fit like a glove. Okay. And then when you kind of tighten this out, all the fabric comes together, right, at the top, okay? So you want to make sure your fabric meets right there at the top, just like that. And I'm going to use pins. Now there's going to be a place where you need to keep it open because you have to turn it inside out. So if you sew all the way around here, there's no opening for you to turn it inside out. So there's going to have to be at a start and a stop place for you to allow that fabric to turn in on itself, right? So what we normally do in the quilting world is we place 2 pins side by side so we know that's a start and a stop place. So I'm going to place 2 more pins side by side right here so that I know this area is where I'm going to use that hole to turn things through, to turn it in on itself. Okay? Or I guess turn it out on itself. All right. Now it seems like my seam allowance was a little bit scant because I see this kind of extra fabric right here. It kind of like bunches up a little bit. So that means my seam allowance was scant, which means it wasn't quite a 1/4 inch. It was less than a 1/4 inch. All right. Now, I have to move some things out of the way because I'm going to take this acrylic off, so I have to move all this stuff out of the way. Now, what I should say before I go on is if you wanted to place your loops in here, you place your loops, turn them inside like this to make a loop, and then you place it on the inside. So let me show you. You place this on the inside, right like this. Line that up with the top there, and line it up with the fabric here, and then pin that in place or clip it so that it does not move, and then it gets caught in the seam allowance. And when you turn it inside out, that loop is now going to be on the outside. Okay? So I want to put those right at the seam. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to create a lot of bulk right here. Probably too much fabric because there are several layers of fabric right here. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. But I'm going to use a different color. So remember, you put the loop to the inside, and then the bottom lines up with all of this. This is a ton of fabric. So when you go over this with your needle, make sure you go slow because you can snap or bend a needle and you're not going to be happy about that. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take this out. Ouch. I keep stabbing myself with those pins. Okay. Now all this goes away. All this goes away. So that I can use just this little arm. Oops. Okay. So now I'm going to start right here where I have 2 needles. So this is my start and this is my stop. Uh-oh. Now, I'm going to fix this. Okay. I'm also going to change my tension on here a little bit, or maybe not tension, but thread length, so it gives it a little bit more. I'm going to go to 3.5 just because we're going through a lot of bulk, a lot of layers, and yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take these 2 out. I'm going to start here where those 2 pins were and back stitch. Now I'm coming up to my first seam. You can't even see that. All right, here we go. I'm coming up to my first seam, so I'm going to slow this way down. And then as I come up, I want to make sure my seams stay in the direction I want them to go, really flat. And I go up over all that bulk. You can flatten out your seams if anything is moving, shifting on you. If you need to add a button, so the button trick, I don't have a button with me, but the button trick is to place a button underneath the bottom here, and that, when you put that down, that keeps the back of your presser foot in the same line so that it doesn't cause a wonkiness. Alright, and take these out. Just going to continue to move pretty slow. I have a bunch of needles in here. To keep things in alignment. So every time you come to a needle, you want to pull, I'm sorry, I keep saying needles. You want to pull your pins out so that you don't inadvertently break your needle by walking over a pin, sewing down onto a pin. Okay, so now I'm coming up to another seam here. I'm going to pause it. Up and over, and then I'm going to back stitch, and as I do that, some of the thread, or the fabric gets kind of tangled up, and then I keep on moving, and now I'm coming up to my second double pin. So I know right here I'm going to stop and back stitch a couple of times so that I hold that. I hold that in place. Okay, so here we are. All right, now here's the fun part, guys. Here's the fun part. So we open this up. So this is stitched all the way around. You can see that black thread stitched all the way around. So all of your fabric should have been caught. Okay, so you find this opening between the layer, between the lining and the outside, and then you just very gently pull the inside out. So you have to pull the whole thing through. So it's coming in on itself, like I said before. So you're pulling the whole thing through. Be very careful that you don't pull too hard and snap your thread where you started and stopped. Okay, so now look. Now we have our, isn't that magical? Open up your bottom. Okay, so poke out the corners, open up the bottom, poke out the corners, And this is where ironing your seams would have been very helpful, or is very helpful. And then, so you poke out your corners, and then you draw this down. Take out your hand, draw this down inside. Now remember, this is the inside, and this is the outside. But this is reversible, so you can do it however you want. Now I added these tabs, right? I added those little tabs, these little hooks right here. So you can see they are now secured inside, just like so. Pretty cool, huh? They're secured inside. And now what you want to do is a little bit fiddly, but you're going to roll the fabric flat. So you want to make sure that both pieces meet at the top. You don't want to have like, well, actually, if you do like this kind of thing, make sure you do that all the way around, because that'll give it a little rim. Or you could do it to the other way too. But normally, so it's not necessarily wrong if you do that, but if you make that mistake, make sure you make them, quote, do the whole thing around. It could be an artistic, decorative thing. Anyway, I'm going to add my clips right here. And I'm just rolling this down. And the other thing you can do is iron this. So once you iron it, the fabric will stay in place a little bit better. Okay. So get my clips. All right. Now, what you do for here is you just, once you come to this spot, you just tuck these under. So it should be a 1/4 inch or more. If you've used a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you only have a 1/4 inch to work with. But if you used a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, then you have that fabric to work with. So if you used a 1/2 inch seam allowance, that gives you more area to work with. More foldability, I guess. I don't know. It's a little bit easier if you have more seam. Okay. And then just make sure that is straight. Okay? Because we're going to sew this closed. We're going to top stitch that closed. And that's why I took my acrylic tabletop off. All right. Is this good enough? For me. See, right here is where, yeah, you'll see it when I flip it around. Right there is where it kind of doubled up on itself. All right, and sometimes this could be really fiddly, kind of difficult. Where are my scissors? Okay. All right, I think I'm just gonna start where the opening is. Okay. And you can use an 1/8 of an inch top stitch if you want. It's up to you. Now I'm using black thread here. So on this white background, it's going to be easily seen. So I want to try to make it as perfect as possible. Now we're going up over the seam and over the little tab. Okay, so now we're coming up to where we started, and we have to go over this second tab. So just go slow, be careful. And now we've just exactly met up where we started. Do a little back stitch. And there we go. Okay. Now if you want to do that again, you can. Okay. You can do a second go round. And this is the outside. There we go. This is the outside. We've boxed the corners. And then here's the inside. Now you can turn it around. And because this is reversible, now this is the outside. And this is the inside. The other thing you can do with these fabric boxes is roll the cuff down. You can roll it down like so. All right, look how nice this turned out, guys. And it's quite a bit bigger than the 10-inch one. Okay, here's the 12.5. Here's the 10-inch. So you can see it holds a lot more, the volume. And then if you do an 8-inch square, it's going to be quite a bit smaller from this one. Okay? So there you go. So, have fun making your boxes. Now I'm going to, yeah, see? This one sits inside that. Pretty nice. Oh, and there's the tabs. And you can hang these on loops if you want. All right, you guys, have fun making these. I'm going to put my tag on now. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.